Okay guys, we're going to keep looking at our adding fractions, and we're going to go through the couple of strategies that we've been talking about, and that is that when we're adding and subtracting, we have to make sure that we're finding common denominators. So there's two different ways to find a common denominator. The first method that we've talked about that will always work is we can just multiply the two denominators together. The second method that we've talked about that also works is finding our least common denominator. And so when we're finding our least common denominator, we're looking at all of the multiples of each denominator and figuring out the one that is going to be the smallest. This is always the most effective strategy. It keeps the fractions small and makes them a lot easier to work with. So this is definitely the strategy that I prefer to use, but both strategies do work. So let's take a look at our fractions. We're going to do one that doesn't have negatives first, and then we're going to look at some that do have negatives. So first thing I want to do is notice my denominators of 8 and 7. So again, one of the strategies is just to multiply those together. So we would just be thinking, okay, what is 8 times 7? 8 times 7 is 56. So then what I'm going to do is just make my denominator 56. Now in order to do that, both of my fractions have to change. I need to multiply my 1/8 times 7 over 7. Whatever I do to the denominator, I need to do the same thing to the numerator. So 7 times 1 is 7. Then I need to change my other fraction, 2/7, and I need to multiply both the denominator and the numerator by 8, or 8 over 8. So 2 times 8 is 16. Now this is where it gets a little tricky, because you'll notice that 7/56 is smaller than 16/56, and we're subtracting. So we're actually going to think of that subtraction like a negative sign. And so what we have is we've got a positive fraction and we have a negative fraction. So we're going to be subtracting 16 minus 7, which is 9. And we know that since the 16 is negative, the 9 would also be negative. And then we bring our denominator of 56 over, and we just want to make sure that we can't simplify these. So 9 and 56 do not have a common factor. They do not have a number that they're both divisible by. So that would be our answer in simplest form. We're going to move on to our next example, and I'm going to put a negative here. So again, we're going to want to find a common denominator between 3 and 8, and then I'm going to need to really pay attention to the negatives. Now I know my common denominator between 3 and 8 would be 24. So I'm going to rewrite my fractions with denominators of 24. And again, I want to remember that this 1/3 is negative, so I'm going to put the negative up there right away. And I'm going to put my subtraction sign in there right away. So I know that 3 times 8 gets me to 24, so I also need to multiply 1 times 8. So I've got negative 8/24. For my second fraction, I need to multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 3, and 5 times 3 is 15. So now I'm thinking back to chapter 1. I see a negative, I see subtraction, so I'm going to keep negative 8/24. I'm going to change subtraction to addition, and I'm going to change positive 15 to negative 15/24. So now I see that we have the same sign. Both of these are negative, so that means my answer will be negative. And I'm going to add 8 plus 15 is 23. So I have negative 23/24. So you can see for subtraction, we have two things we really need to focus on. We need to focus on common denominators, and then we need to focus on our negative rules. And so that was using the strategy keep, change, change that we learned in chapter 1. Keep, change, change.